Hello and welcome. This is the F&O Show on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I am Agam Vakil and here are the headlines. Markets are off to a steady start. The Nifty trades above 11,600 with moderate gains. And open interest has increased in Just Dial and Amara Raja batteries. Both stocks are seeing fresh short positions. Ashok Leyland is trading with declines after the company announced that it will undertake a planned shutdown in its Pantnagar plant owing to subdued demand. And Tata Motors is the top gainer on the index after JLR will receive support of £500 million in the UK to develop electric vehicles. Let's very quickly look at the futures and options trends at this point in time. We are looking at both the indices advancing, to a certain extent, of course. The Nifty up by around 0.25% and the Sensex by just as much. We are looking at the Nifty, trending currently at around 11,700. And, there you have it. We don't have too much to speak for as far as open interest is concerned. And moving on, if you consider the Bank Nifty futures, the Bank Nifty futures too are looking at about 6.5% increase, even though the spot is advancing by around 0.5%. So there is a little more in terms of the Nifty banking futures. As far as your VIX is concerned, and that is perhaps a crucial one, if we can have the India VIX on your screen there, it's actually at around 11.6 and it's at a multi-month low right now. While this can be looked at two ways. So while some may actually suggest that there is literally no expectation of volatility, many others may say that the VIX is dangerously low, which means that there actually could be a spike in this one, which may lead to a little more volatility. Let's wait and watch. But for now, we do know the lack of triggers in the horizon, so we can't say too much for the India VIX right now. Moving on, let's also address how options are panning out. So when it comes to the way your open interest has turned up, we are looking at 11,600. And this is, of course, your open interest distribution. That is the weekly expiry. So it's July 18th expiry. 11,600 put is the one where you are looking at a lot of OI build-up. And the 11,700 call is, again, where you have some amount of accumulation. But let's wait and watch as to where the Nifty moves around. Now, we must remember that Nifty is currently at around just about shy of the 11,700 mark. That makes this particular options expiry crucial. And in terms of open interest change, as one might expect, a little more writing in the lower level puts in comparison to calls. Let's keep an eye on some of these trends as we move in. But in terms of some other stocks as well, let's talk about some of your stocks which are seeing an increase or a decrease in open interest. And of course, right at the top, you do have Tata Elxsi. But this stock is actually declining for now. And as you can see, we are looking at a surge of around 31.5% increase in open interest. So there are some shorts building into it. MCX India, on the other hand, which came out with earnings and a very sharp up move there, 20% added nearly as far as open interest is concerned towards longs naturally. Apollo Hospitals is also seeing longs. And Federal Bank, where the quarterly numbers were a little subdued, is looking at shorts. RBL Bank, in contrast, is advancing with fresh buying coming through. In terms of stocks which are seeing unwinding, let's pull that up as well and take a look at what's going on. Okay, so you have Nalco and Birlasoft, which is seeing a little bit of a decline in OI, but not too much to speak for. On the whole, we're going to keep an eye on some of the names which are seeing a surge in open interest. Let's move in and talk about stocks we will also address in today's day of trade. And, there are plenty of counters to look forward to. But the stocks which we are focusing on today is UPL. Now, there is fresh buying in futures. It has moved above a crucial DMA, so we'll be talking about that. And good gains coming in fact, a gaining streak for Apollo Hospitals. So have things changed for this one? And selling, on the other hand, when it comes to Strides. So we keep an eye on that one as well in terms of the technicals and the futures and options, multiples that some of these companies are throwing us. So we'll be watching out for that. Now, on that note, let me get in our experts. But before that, here's a reminder. If you have any queries regarding futures and options markets, you can call us now on 022-4540-4141, or of course, write to us on Twitter, Facebook with the Ask BQ hashtag. Let's get in our experts for the day. Then we have Rahul Shah of Motilal Oswal Securities Services and K. Subramanyam of Altamount Capital joining us on the show. Good morning to both of you and thanks for taking the time out. Mr. Subramanyam, I start with you. Your view on the markets and the way forward from here?
Well, morning Agam, I think the market's in a bit of a neutral state. I think 11,650, 670, this was supposed to be expected to be some sort of a resistance area. But the manner in which yesterday it closed and the banking in particular, which was looking weak, but yesterday I think we saw some pretty vigorous short covering coming in many of the banks. The PSU banking pack saw some very smart gains after the losses they had on Monday. So all in all, I think interestingly poised. So I am not taking a directional call. So on the Nifty recommending, but as you already mentioned in the beginning of the show, the volatility looks a little low, and I think we might actually see that spike going into expiry tomorrow. So recommending buying of a straddle, one could possibly buy a 650 strike call and put in the Nifty. Total cost comes to about 68, keeping a target of 100, and one could keep a stop loss of 48.
Okay, well, there you have it. So, well, Mr. Subramanyam is looking to buy the 11,650 call and put. And that, of course, is going long on a straddle for now. And, of course, it's a strategy that you employ when one expects a little bit of an increase in volatility. And when option premiums expand, that is where your strategy becomes profitable. But moving on, Rahul, good morning to you too. Your view on the markets and the VIX, of course, is being very curious here. How are you going about your trades?
Hi, good morning. I think obviously the VIX have been hitting lows every day, and way the markets have shaped up. And if I look at the technical perspective, I feel that 11,450 had a good support, and I think there's a resistance at 11,710 or something. So looking at the current option data, which looks like that 11,500 we've seen a good writing, and 11,600 also we've seen a good writing for the weekly expiry. And upside also 700 and 800 calls have been sold. So I think the upside could also be capped, and downside also looks limited. That's why we are seeing that VIX at low. But interestingly, if I look at the bank Nifty, where I feel a lot of banking heavyweights looks significantly good on technical perspective. All the heavyweights, if I look at HDFC Bank, Kotak, ICICI, Axis, all of them looks like that, there's some more moment left in it. So I think the BankX might outperform in the Nifty going forward as well. So I think the BankX can lead the rally in Nifty and inch it higher. So my view is that BankX can go to 31,200 or so in a near term.
Okay, so that's the view coming in as far as indices are concerned. Let's move on and talk about stocks then. Rahul, I come back to you on stocks that are looking interesting to you today. What's on your radar?
I think two stocks. One, obviously, I discussed that BankX looks interesting. So Kotak Bank, where it is inching near to its all-time high, and that stock looks very promising. Good longs built up, and technically also good structure for Kotak Bank. So my view is that I think the risk to reward could be favorable in going long in Kotak Bank. So I would go long in Kotak with a stop loss of 15.15 and target of 15.45. Second is Grasim. I feel that Grasim again slowly and steadily this stock is inching higher. So risk to reward again in a Grasim could be beneficial. So keeping a stop loss of 915 and target of 965, which was a near-term high, the Grasim can definitely hit that.
Okay. There you have it. Those are two calls coming in from Rahul. Mr. Subramanyam, anything that's looking interesting to you this morning?
Yeah, I'm going with buying of a 350 strike call in Bharti. Now, this has actually been a steady feature of the market in the last few months. So I've seen some decent correction, and this 345, 350 is a pretty significant support level. So, in terms of a risk reward, I think I would bet on the long side on Bharti. One could possibly buy a 350 strike call, quoting around 5.5, 5.7, and keeping a target of 10, and maybe one could keep a stop loss of 250. And the second one is a buying of a plain vanilla call on Wipro. Today they're coming out with the results, and on the chart it looks extremely oversold, and we have already seen some pretty good buying coming over to many of the tech counters. And given that Wipro also has pretty low floating stock, and a short covering could be vigorous. In terms of risk reward, I think one could buy a 270 strike call that's quoting it around 270, 2 rupees 70 paisa, keeping a target of 8, and maybe one could keep a stop loss of 1 rupee.
Okay, let's move in and talk about some stocks that I want to address in today's day of trade, and starting off with UPL. Now, we've seen a lot of volatility in UPL. In fact, over the past few weeks, you actually saw UPL move above the mark of 700, then come down to the levels of around 650 odd. But, ever so slightly on the past 3 days, it's made a little bit of an up move. And with that up move, for now, it is currently trending just slightly above its 50-day daily moving average. Of course, it's well above its 100 and 200 daily moving averages, but the fact that it has moved above all these 3 crucial daily moving averages, the question really is that is this a time? It has something changed for UPL, and would it make sense to go ahead and buy into UPL at this point in time? So, well, Rahul, this question is for you. Your view on UPL and levels you would keep an eye on?
I think the very good structure for UPL, and I think and this is a stock where we've seen in any mediocre sell-off also the stock has bounced back quite smartly. So my view is that I think the support for the stock is now holds at 648 or odd levels. So I think with that stop loss, I think one can still go look at that stock can inch to 680 or to its near-term highs also at 700 or odd levels adjusted bonus. So my sense is that I think one should look at long on UPL from current levels.
Let's move on and talk about Apollo Hospitals then. And this is another one of those stocks which has actually done very well of late. Currently trending higher for the 4th straight day, up 2% today. Open interest increase of around 15% right now. Volumes have been, well, so-so, certainly below its, previous, I would say 10 to 15 day average. But, if you don't consider the volumes and if you actually just see the way the stock has moved over the last 1 week or so, there's been a lot of strength. So coming on the back of around 1,325, currently trending at around 1,420 odd rupees, nearly a 100-point up move in the last 4 sessions. What's the way forward here? Does the risk-reward ratio favor, a buy in this one? Mr. Subramanyam, this question is for you. Apollo Hospitals at 1,420, would you buy, would you sell, and what levels would you watch out for?
Well, clearly a stock which has outperformed the market in the last, I think, month or two, and there is a lot of buying coming about at lower levels. Current levels, I would probably be a bit wary about buying it. Probably I will wait for some levels, cooling off maybe to levels of 1390, 14 and thereabouts. And I think this has the potential to go up all the way up to 1460, 1470 in the near term. In the next, I think, few weeks or so. So I think I'll probably wait for some cooling off since it has already risen the last 3-4 sessions. As I mentioned, closest levels of 1390, I think it should be decent buy. So wait for some time, and probably one could make the entry once it cools off.
And the final question of the final stock that I want to address on my side is Strides Chasun, because again we've seen a little bit of weakness here, and the way things are panning out, this is one of those stocks which is actually seeing a surge in open interest in terms of the top gainers in OI, but towards the losing end. So there is certainly a little bit of selling pressure in Strides Chasun when it comes to its futures. Currently at 370, that's where its spot is. And its futures were trading with a little bit of a discount of around 2 odd points, 367. Rahul, what levels would you watch out for, and how would you play Strides here?
I think if you look at the pharmas, have been in a mixed bag in a few stocks performing from the recent lows, and so and overall, if I look at the pharma index also, so looks okay from the current levels. And when I compare with Strides Chasun, I think the important thing is the stock on a technical front is showing a very weakness. I don't think so any great sign of recovery, and stock is closer to its 50-day low around 340s or odd levels. So my sense is I think technical structure looks weak, so one can use a sell on rise kind of a strategy. So I think about around 375, 380 levels one could short it. That's what I feel.
Okay. All right, well, on that note, let's move in and start taking queries too. And well, we actually have a lot of queries from the financial space. We have one on Facebook from Brijesh Pandya, and he says that he's bought a lot of HDFC Limited at 2,395 today. His question is, should he exit? So I'm assuming that this is an intraday call. Let's pull up the futures then. At 2395, it's come off, and well, okay, this is perplexing because either the stock price is incorrect or the stock has actually seen a surge. Can we actually have the intraday graph for HDFC Limited? Because the numbers certainly don't add up. So I'm actually wondering if this is actually 2295. All in all, let's take this up in any case. Rahul, I'll come back to you on HDFC Limited. Your view here, if you could possibly give us an intraday view, because I believe the gentleman has bought it today, and perhaps a positional view.
I think the structure of HDFC Limited looks quite promising, and if I compare with HDFC Bank and HDFC Limited, so I think HDFC Bank has underperformed and HDFC Limited has outperformed, and it has done quite well. So my sense is, I think the stock with an intraday perspective, I think 2170 is the stop loss I think he can keep, and it can make an attempt of 2300 or 2170 is the stop loss he can make, and I think the stock can go to 2300 odd levels, which looks like.
All right. Well, we actually have a couple of queries on Kotak Mahindra Bank. We have on Facebook Girish Kumar and Lalit, who is also looking at Kotak Mahindra Bank. But I want to tell both of you that we have Rahul, who's given us a view on that one. So I'm going to move on and take Girish Kumar's view on L&T Finance. And his question is it good to go long in L&T Finance from current levels? Let's pull up L&T Finance and we can take this up with Mr. Subramanyam. So L&T Finance holdings currently at 123. It's up 2%, but there's a little change in open interest. But it has been buzzing off late, and that's largely on account of a lot of moves in the NBFC space. Mr. Subramanyam, would you advise Girish to go long on L&T Finance at these levels?
See, given the weakness that we have seen in the NBFC space, though actually I like this counter, I think any outperformance that would come from the NBFC space, this could be one leading, could be one of the leading ones. But at current juncture, I'm still not very sure that the uptrend has begun. So if he has to enter, probably he could resort to an option buying, maybe buy a 120 strike call or thereabouts. I think that would be a better strategy, because we still don't have a confirmation that the downtrend is over. But any upside, any change in the movement of overall change in the move of the NBFC space, I think this should be one broad outperformer.
Okay. Well, moving on to Pankaj Joshi's query on Biocon. He actually just wants a view on the futures and options of Biocon. Let's pull up the futures in this case and see what it's doing. Not too much happening in the future space. Again, there's very little discount here, and the spot is at around 262. Let's also pull up the last 3-month chart, perhaps if we can pull up the daily moving averages in comparison and see how it's done. Of course, it's down 15%, as you can see there, but there's been a little bit of an up move in just the last 1 or 2 odd weeks. And it's actually managed to move above its 50 daily moving average very, very recently. So the question really is that, is this a turnaround? Can this be taken as an indication to go along on? Rahul, would you buy into Biocon, and what are the support and resistances that you're keeping an eye?
I think definitely I would go long on Biocon at the current levels, and if I look at, as we discussed earlier also, that the pharma, a few stocks looks quite interesting. So one of the favorite I think is Biocon, and looking at the structure, the stock made a low of 230 or odd levels in near term, and then again smartly it has bounced back. So my sense is this 258 was the resistance for the stock, and from where the stock has moved out to 262 or odd levels. So I think near term support for the stock remains at 258.50. With that stop loss, I think I should advise that he can go long, and with a target of 275.
All right, and on that note, I think we have time to take just one more query. So we'll take one from Rahul Agarwal. His query is on Power Grid, and he wants to go short, I believe, on Power Grid. Let's pull that up. Let's see where Power Grid is currently trending. It's down around less than 1%. It's 207. It's a counter that we don't usually speak of because, well, it's actually a very slow-moving counter, and its open interest has not done too much either for now. In fact, it's not only a slow-moving counter on a short-term basis, but even in a long-term basis. We don't have too much of a flurry here. That said, I'll still put this question with our experts. So, Mr. Subramanyam, your view on Power Grid, what would your advice be for this one?
Well, I think you put it spot on. I think not a mover which people can take on an intraday basis, but positionally, I think this is one stock which could actually outperform in the Nifty, because I think it just needs breakout past levels of 210, 212. And probably this will raise all the way up to 220, 225. So the chart definitely looks very promising. So as an intraday, I mean short, I would definitely not advise him to do that. But I think closer to levels of maybe 205 or 200, I think 205 thereabouts. I think this could turn out to be a good buy. And but for a positional trade, it has never been an intraday trade. And this has the potential to go up because if you have seen the overall context of the market, this has been a very strong outperformer, though, but in a very silent manner.
All right. We do have a question from Krishnakant Verma on YouTube on UPL futures. And Krishnakant, I want to tell you that we have actually addressed it in this very show. So you can actually go back and listen to some of our experts, because this is one of those stocks that I've addressed. And you can always look up. Unfortunately, we're really out of time. So I'm going to very quickly revisit the markets right now. The Nifty currently trending higher by 0.25%, as is the case for the Sensex. And the Bank Nifty also showing a little bit of gain, not too much to speak for on the whole. However, that's largely on account of some of those private sector banks which are actually pulling these indices higher. In terms of stocks, again, considering we've already mentioned and addressed UPL as well as Kotak Mahindra Bank, they're the top two gainers on the Nifty, and we're doing well. In fact, Z Entertainment and HCL Technologies also seeing a little bit of traction today. GAIL, on the other hand, is looking at just a little bit of weakness, and Coal India looking at a decline of around 1%. But on the whole, it's been a very, very quiet morning. And honestly, we're going to have to wait for the second half to see whether or not there is an increased traction. For now, there isn't as much. On that note, I'm going to take a moment to thank both our experts, Rahul and Mr. Subramanyam, for joining us and taking us through their views on the markets and solving some of our viewer queries. For more updates on the F&O space, you can also check our website at bloombergquint.com, specifically the futures and options pages. And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. But for more news and updates, stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint Live.